Welcome to our podcast, Life According to Lisa.
And Jim occasionally gets a word in edgewise.
And Jim, too. Today's episode is
That's what she said.
the real people behind the Brooklyn Witch characters. So today we're going to talk about how real life becomes fiction. So this episode isn't just about who inspired who or whom.
No, it's about how you take a person or even a situation, and as previously we spoke about location, and you adapt it to the story.
Right. So how writers observe people, how real life personalities evolve into fictional characters.
And how the tropes, and storytelling
And
characters.
tropes.
A lot of people that write or make shows have a certain type of character that they use all the time, and that's the person and the style that they use, and it's instantly recognizable if you're familiar with their work.
But also there's that line where we consciously try not to become predictable writers.
Right.
We don't want the books to become predictable where you could guess what happens. Like I hate when we're watching TV and I'm like, okay, 3, 2, 1, the body's going to be on the car.
Right.
I could just tell exactly what's going to happen.
Or in a situation, something happens and right away, because you're familiar with the person's work, you know who wrote it. For instance, if you see two characters and they seem normal, and then all of a sudden they start having crazy wild sex, you say, oh, this is a Ryan Murphy show. Or you see two characters walking down a corridor and they're just talking to each other in perfectly formed sentences in discussion without a beat. That's Aaron Sorkin, because that's what he does.
Yes.
He doesn't have like Lenny from Mice of Men, killing a rabbit. That doesn't happen. It's like too cerebral.
Or there's a lot of torture porn.
Right.
We know it's Taylor Sheridan.
Right. Or George Martin from Game of Thrones. There's certain people have proclivities and they just let it leak. I mean, if we're watching a show and somebody gets their tongue ripped out, we know it's Kurt Soda, and we're watching another motorcycle show. So you kind of know who it is. And it's the same thing with books. You read a book and Hemingway, his short clip sentences and the way he, pushes his plot along is
Or
a
you
style.
can see that if someone's writing in that style, you'll know that it's a Hemingway style.
Right. I mean,
And does it work or does it not work?
As a shorthand, yes. But generally, like Pulp Fiction writers write a certain way, and it's enjoyable to me. I like it a lot, but not to everyone. So when I go to the book club and I mention that a particular book that I enjoyed, and all the women go, "Well, I don't like that," because that's not what they like. They like more description, more emotion, more romantic style, romancy. That's the big thing now. So that's what they want. And everybody has entitled to their preference. It's fine.
Now, we do talk a lot about TV shows in this podcast, but we want to pump up the library and go to your local library and take books out. You will find something that you will find enjoyable.
And you have a big scope because there's a lot of different books. And if you speak to the librarian, hopefully they'll be able to point you in a direction to a particular type of book. So you say, hey, I like Robert Parker. Who's also like him? And they'll say, oh, Michael Connolly, or, Elmore Leonard, or they'll give you someone. And you say, oh, I like...
If you like a mystery, if you want a love story, I mean, whatever it is that... Listen, the summer's coming. The weather's getting nice. You're going to want it. We read more in the summer. You're out at the beach. You'd kind of like more relaxing.
Right.
So you have time to do two things at one time. Relax and read a book.
Now, one of the things that's unfortunate is that certain things get termed a certain way. So a lot of people talk about a beach read. And they say, that's just a beach read. That's just to read
I don't
on,
like that.
You just read that. You just read that on the beach. It's not for real intellectual people. We don't read that. I say, you know what? Go yourself, if you know what I mean. If you enjoy it and you're having fun, it's great. It's like eating a pizza, right? You could go.
It always goes back to food.
Yes. But if you go, I went to this beautiful pizzeria and it's got, duck cheese and it's got, quail eggs on it and it's amazing.
Ew.
And it's specifically cooked.
Pineapple.
It's cooked upside down and sideways in this beautiful oven and who cares? You want a piece of pizza that the guy threw on the thing and you eat it and it's got cheese and it's pepperoni and it's delicious. So the pretension.
Reel you back in. I'm reeling you back in.
No, it's just that the pretension gets me crazed.
Unless it's Jane Austen.
Well, certain
Where
people
it's enjoyable pretension.
Yes. Well, but not enjoy. I don't. Yes.
There is enjoyable pretension.
True. I mean, certain books that are pretentious in my view, which people will say, "Oh, that's a classic. How could you call such a story pretentious?" And I'm saying it's pretentious because the people are talking down to you when they write a story.
Mm-hmm.
You know who does that a lot? Political writers. So political writers have a point of view, so they talk down to you like you're an idiot, you know, and you have to kiss their ass basically because they know so much more than you. They're credentialed and they have master's degrees and PhDs and more degrees than a thermometer. I don't care. You're either smart or you're not, you know, and smart and not smart people sometimes are the most fun. You know, you have a great time. You go to the, you know, great adventure and you all go on a water slide and everybody's having a good time. That's fine.
All right.
Is that a segue or is that
So visit your local
sideshow?
library. It's good.
Right. So, but to bring it back to what we're talking about,
You'll find your style, the type of book that you want.
Right.
A nice story.
Right.
And, you know, plus you'll get to meet people. Libraries are great. We're pumping up the library today.
Yes, library saved our life because when we found the Oceanside Library, we came here, we met a lot of great people, and they have a lot of great activities. And if you go to your local library, please support it, and you'll learn a lot, and you'll have fun. And you know, and we do things differently. Like Lisa loves all the crafting stuff, so I get to print, you know, paste feathers on a stick, and it's great.
It's a social event.
Yes, it's wonderful. Or I'm painting like an upside down bunch of flowers or something.
All right, just to get you off of this crazy tangent, you were talking about Game of Thrones and those type of books. You just earlier we were having a conversation before we turned the mics on about the TV show Expanse that we watched and I loved.
Right. Well, so it's talking about a style.
And then we were talking about books versus actual TV shows. So
Right.
just a little, you know, behind the scene that we were doing before we turned the mics on. And he was like, "Remember that show Expanse?"
Yes, Lisa loved the show
I like
Expanse.
sci-fi stuff.
She likes science fiction, but to read actual science fiction, sometimes it's slow going. For instance, Dune, I'll give you an example. If you actually read the book Dune, and I know Lisa has, it's slow going. It's a long way before the worms show up, you know. It's like, woo, there's a lot here, you know. And then you get to it and you're saying, okay, I'm not really interested in all the hard science part of it.
Right.
You know, so recently in the book club, I was talking about that. And I said, you know, you guys aren't going to like hard science fiction. It's not really for you.
And like Game of Thrones.
Right. Well, Game of Thrones is another example. There's a lot of brutality and stuff in it. It's very entertaining, but it's also...
But you have to sign up to his way of thinking.
Correct.
When you read his book.
Right. And
All the books, rather.
yes. And what happens is, like, if you go in there thinking you're getting the Lord of the Rings, it's not the Lord of the Rings.
See, when I watched Game of Thrones, I watched it through my fingers because Jim would say, "Close your eyes. Close your
you
eyes
don't
now."
wanna
I
watch
don't
that.
need certain things in my imagination to dream about later. So I always have like my hand in front of my face. If you're reading Game of Thrones, you can't close your eyes. You have to read.
Yes. And like when you're looking at a particular type of book.
Even Outlander,
Right.
right? Or all the torture porn that's in that book. Or all those books.
Yes.
I mean, there was parts that were disturbing watching it on television. I don't, you know, I can't imagine reading. I didn't read her books. the
Yes.
Outlander books.
Unfortunately, I read one of her books.
My sister reads all the books.
So she told me
There's
to-
a lot of groups that love Outlander. There's a lot of people
and
out
it's,
there.
It's fun. It's a good book. But I
There's
look.
some parts that I find disturbing, and when you're reading it, you're so engrossed and committed to the scene that you're reading, and you're imagining it. I have a very vivid imagination, so I can't imagine being in that spot.
You don't want that in your head.
I don't want that in my head.
Right. But when you're reading, for example, if you're reading with a book, a physical book, it's much harder than with the Kindle because what I do is I read, and sometimes I'm in a particular part of a book. And I'll give you an example. This one guy, Ed Nelson, wrote this story about this guy that was a baron, inhabited the body of a baron in medieval England. But he's very smart and he's memorized all these books. So he starts describing how he's inventing things for these people.
Oh, you were telling me about this in bedtime story time.
Yes.
When I'm like, Jim, what are you reading?
Yeah.
Tell me about what you're reading. So he tells me and I fall asleep.
Yes, that's I talk and I tell her all these interesting books I like, and Lisa's snoring. So
But it's like story time.
hopefully that's not going to happen now. Pay attention.
Pay attention.
So what this guy does, he likes all this technical stuff. So he starts writing about how you make certain things were interesting, like how you make gunpowder. That's great. Maybe you might have to know how to do that someday. But also how to make an airplane. And he's talking about, the aerodynamics and all the, there's like 30 pages of it's crap. And I'm like, if I had a physical book, it'd be very difficult to go skip it. But when you got your Kindle, you just go, oh, this sucks. Oh, here we go. He's starting to kill, Saxons. All right, I'll start reading this part. I skip all of that crap. So
now, when you were talking about books versus Kindle, when I have a physical book, every time I pick it up, I know the book I'm reading, the name of it, the author. Like you see it every single time you pick up your book.
Right.
When I'm in the Kindle world and I open up my Kindle, I'm like at the last paragraph that I left it at, and where I could just continue reading. Sometimes I forget all the names of all the books that I've read.
Right.
I like a lot of English mystery and, English writers. And
you like the cozy mysteries too.
I like cozy mysteries because they calm me down. It's like I don't really have to think. You just like read. Okay, that's fun. And then you move on to the next one. But I do like some of those other mysteries.
Right.
A lot of English writers.
Yeah, and then I get the Christie style where it's not blood and guts, but it's a cerebral thing. Where
I don't want to be scared when I'm in bed. I don't want to see gore. It's almost like a BritBox or Acorn.
Nobody wants to see Al Gore in their bed. Trust me.
It's like those shows on BritBox and Acorn that we watch that you see the murder, but it's not like Scarpetta.
Yeah, it's not, and it's also not like Tracker or SWAT where they kill 50 people in 2 minutes and then they go off and enjoy themselves. So what happens is when you have a particular style of book that you like, whether it's hard science fiction or cozy mysteries or police procedurals or hardcore, what they call hardcore mystery or crime, you fall into that genre and you like to read those books and you find other authors that are similar. Mm-hmm. That's what Amazon does when you buy something. They say, if you like this, you like that.
Right.
So that means if you leave a review for the Brooklyn Witch, maybe we can get in that algorithm and sell more books. So
yes.
remember,
the Brooklyn Witch, thebrooklynwitch.com.
And it's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kobo, Apple Books, anywhere books are sold.
That's all you have to remember. The Brooklyn Witch.
So when you're looking in a particular genre, now the same thing happens on TV too. I mean, if you like a show and you like a situation comedies, you click on things that are situation comedies. You say, oh, this is great. Or you like police procedurals, right? So how many NCSs or CI, what was that other one? The ones with the procedurals with the murderers and
the
CIS. What is it?
No. It was the serial killer one, right?
Yeah, that one you didn't like.
No, who wants to watch a show every week about serial killers? I don't need that information in my head.
Right.
I like pleasantry in my brain.
Right, but there's a whole genre of like Law and Order, for instance.
That doesn't. I'm not thrilled by that stuff. That stuff makes me go, ugh.
And it's a formula. And what happens is and to go back to what our discussion, the writers have a particular type person and they write their stories about it. Now, what happens is it gets pretty boring after a while. Everybody on Law and Order is so self-righteous and so, not perfect. They do have flaws, but they also don't realize what they're about. And it gets very annoying, and after a while you can't watch it anymore. And it could be the other way too, like Chicago PD. We would watch that for a while, and then we said, wait, these guys are always so corrupt and always doing stuff, but I don't want to watch this anymore. I had enough. And you go to a different show.
Well, they take the easy way out when they keep writing, I forgot what I was going to say now.
Well, we were talking about plot devices and coincidences and how when
that's the word, coincidence.
Right. When we saw an egregious example of that recently in an English show.
Oh, my God. It made me so angry. I was so angry because I don't know if anyone's watched After the Flood.
Right.
I think it's on BritBox or Acorn.
It's BritBox, I believe.
BritBox, right?
Yes.
Last year, what a great season. It was about, it's called After the Flood, but now they had the flood last season and they went through the whole thing.
They're having the fire this season, and next season they're going to have frogs. They're going to fall down.
And locusts will be the season after that.
Yes, they're not that inventive. They kind of have a template,
But it's this area in England that, there's a lot of factories and there's mountains and they're at the bottom, so they're get flooded.
They're in a floodplain, basically.
Right. So what I
That happened to me, not to interrupt you, but when I used to go to the Boy Scout camp up in up in Narrowsburg, we used to have to go through Port Jervis, New Jersey, near a river, near the Delaware River. And every once in a while we'd stop to, stop in a diner or something. And this one guy was talking and he said, yeah, I've been flooded out like 7 out of the last 10 years. And
I
he'd say,
couldn't handle that.
don't you think you maybe should move?
I'm like a cat.
Right.
I don't like getting wet on a
Right.
good day.
Right.
I couldn't imagine walking through water with, oh my God, I can't.
Now, you can understand why people that live in Florida, and you say, why would you want to live in Florida? Like Lisa's mother said, I never lived there. There's alligators and hurricanes. And the hurricane comes every year and destroys your house. No, it doesn't. Every once in a while it does, but not every year.
Mm-hmm.
But there are a lot of, I had a friend that lived in Key West, and he would tell me, oh, I can't talk. I have to board up my house because the hurricane's coming.
Batten down the hatches.
So, 360 days of the year, it's beautiful. And you're in paradise. But 5 days of a year, you're hiding under your bed because you think you're going to go to Wizard of Oz land and it's going to blow away, So that's the choice that you make.
But so this one episode, back to
After the flood.
There was this one scene. So it's not going to really give anything away if you didn't watch it yet.
Yes, we are. We don't care. You didn't watch it.
First of all, I have to say it was I enjoyed season 1. I thought it was great. I thought the characters were great. I loved how they built the characters and how you got to know each one of them,
right,
from the good to the bad. Here comes season 2, and I'm thinking, oh, this is great. But then there's like a cheat that they do with the coincidence writing that becomes like, it irks me, and they use it as a plot device, and it's like stupid and obvious, and it aggravated me so bad. I screamed, and I looked at Jim, and we both looked at each other, and I was like, did that just annoy you? Because that really annoyed me.
Right.
There was another way to get to that, to get that plot moving without, I'll give you the example. She's girl's in a rush. She's got to put her uniform on because she's getting an award. And they're trying to get her into the ladies' room. The mother grabs her phone out of her hand, and they zoom in on the phone in the mother's hand, her cell phone.
Right, and it didn't close off where you would need a password.
So it's still open, and it was open set to where she was texting her husband. And the mother takes the phone and puts it on. All of a sudden, there's a chair outside the ladies' room. Where'd this chair come from?
Right, who sits outside the ladies' room?
Nobody sits outside the ladies' room door. So now there's a chair there, and she puts the phone down and her coat. And they go into the ladies' room to dress her into her uniform. And the bad guy,
the villain,
okay, he's like, oh.
There's a phone there.
Her phone's there.
I'm going to type in.
And he picks it up and he pretends that he's her, telling the husband to meet him somewhere so he can kill him. And I'm like, oh my God, that is horrible.
Yes.
Why would she leave her phone open when she knows? See, he's not just the villain that we know he's the villain as observing the TV show. She knows he's the villain. She knows he's a murderer.
Right. The whole story is about them trying to convict him.
Why would she let her phone be there? But they showed that the mother took it and zoomed in it on the mother's hand. I'm sorry. That aggravated me and ruined the whole thing.
It's a contrivance that's so obvious that you kind of like say, really?
It's such a good show, though. And that little twist there, I was like, that they cheated.
It kind of almost ruins it for you because then you're saying like everything that flows from that is tainted.
Yes.
Because it's so stupid. You're looking at it and saying, why? Why would you do that?
And the rest of it was stupid. I didn't like the way the ending was. I didn't like anything about it. I'm like, they just, as soon as you're from there on, it wasn't good anymore.
Right. Everything that flowed from that.
It's like the writer quit and they hired somebody else.
We got lazy. That's all. It's lazy writing. Sometimes we watch stuff and we say, this is lazy. You know, they're not trying to move the plot along because of the characters and the character's character, if that makes any sense, you know, what that person is all about, you could understand why certain things happen.
They take the easy way out.
But instead, if they have a character act in an exactly opposite way that he normally does, I would love to see someone reverse expectations. Like, I'll give you an example, a Hallmark movie. What's the plot of a Hallmark movie? A woman who's living in the city has a high-powered...
It's always the same.
Right. She's got a high-powered job, and she has this boyfriend, a fiance, who's like doesn't really love her, but like uses her.
But they get along, and she thinks she's happy.
He thinks everything's great.
But she thinks she's happy at that point.
And they go out to fancy dinners, and they have all this great time.
And she thinks that life is wonderful.
And she's enjoying herself because she wanted to get out of her small town. Okay. But then she goes back for some reason. Maybe the Christmas tree farm is failing, or her aunt burned herself and the bakery is going to go under. So she has to go home for a little while. And as she's cooking up the cookies, who walks in but the fireman that she knew in grammar school, who she always had a crush on. And he's a widower, and he has an adorable daughter and a cat.
There you go.
Right. And
check.
And she falls in love with him. And then the guy comes from the city. He realizes something's up because he hasn't heard her. She hasn't texted him.
Right.
No one's taken her phone off the chair in front of the ladies' room and texted him saying, "Get here because your girlfriend is going out with another guy." None of that happens in home. Right. So he comes, and then that guy gets thrown over. What happens if, they reverse expectations, and the girl, instead of going with the guy that they build up that has the cat and the cute little daughter who makes which of course never happens because the kid always hates the other woman. It's never that the kid is gonna be all hunky dory. That's not how it works. Right. Usually 99% out of the time. What if that guy?
You just reminded me of something. Can I just reel back for a second? I was going on a date, and I'm sorry, this is pre-gym, but this made me think of.
I'm very insulted.
I know.
Don't show your dirty laundry, Lisa.
No, it was my daughter was sitting on the love seat, and she said, and she had surgery recently, and she had her appendix out, right? So that was a big thing to her, and she was young. I remember her singing the Snow White seven dwarfs. What were they singing?
Hi ho,
hi ho, hi ho. She was singing that as she was going in.
So she was basically
elevator.
calling you a hoe when the guy came over?
That was in the hospital. Let me get back to it.
Okay.
And so my cousin was there because she was going to babysit, and he was sitting there, and I was getting my stuff, and she said, "So, tell me, have you ever had your appendix out?" She was grilling him. Why did I think of that?
Because I told the story
about the little kid.
And Hallmark, the little kid always loves the...
But guess what? She didn't like him.
No.
So she was grilling him, and then she asked him that question like she was going to catch him up or something.
Right.
So moving forward, here we have my husband, Jim.
Yes. Who didn't have his appendix out.
Right. And Melissa loves him. Okay, go ahead. Moving on.
So we could reverse expectations on the Hallmark story. What if instead of the woman falling for the local guy, she says, "There was a reason I left Binghamton, New York.
Yeah. I
hate all these people, and I hate this life.
I'm selling the farm.
You can have the cookies. I don't care. I'm leaving. You can have your own Christmas trees. I'm not staying here and working with, what am I, a sap? I'm going to work with trees the rest of my life? No, I'm going back to New York.
What am I, a maroon?
Yes. What am I, a mattress? I'm going to turn around and...
Can we tell why we say that?
Okay.
We were on the train coming home, the F train, coming home from work, and Jim he met me at my job, and then we were traveling home, and it was late because I worked late. And there was in the same car, once you hit not 18th Avenue, what's that? Church Avenue.
Right, Church Avenue goes upstairs.
Right, but the one, as soon as we go outside, what's the first stop?
I don't remember.
It wasn't 18th Avenue. I can't remember. Anyway.
Bay Parkway, maybe?
No, that's near the end. So it just gets lighter, and the doors open and cold air comes in because it's in the wintertime.
Right.
But we hear this man yelling at the other end of the train, and it was kind of empty because the train starts to empty out after Church Avenue.
Right.
And we hear, "What am I, a mattress?" And we look like, what is that? And there's two people sitting very close together, like two seats next to each other. When there's other available seats, but the guy fell asleep, and his head kept falling on the old man's shoulder, and he kept saying, "What am I, a mattress?" And he would shrug and push the guy's head off, and the other guy was obviously high or drunk, so that's why he didn't register at all. Right, he didn't care. He kept falling back to sleep every time the guy woke him up.
What the guy should have done is what I would have done. I would have stood up.
He should have stood up and moved.
And the guy would have hit his head on the thing when he fell over.
He would have just fell over, but he could have moved to another seat, but he didn't want to move.
Yes.
And all of a sudden we hear, "What am I, your girlfriend?"
Yes.
And we just laughed. That was just a funny
So we
story.
use this all the time.
What am I, a mattress?
But what if that woman decides that she wants to go back to the city, and she likes the city, and she likes to go to fancy restaurants and dress up, and she doesn't want to wear overalls and sell Christmas trees? That would be an interesting Hallmark movie. There's never been one ever
No,
that
there
did that.
has not. I
That-
would like to see that change.
But would then the Hallmark family people rush the studio with pitchforks and torches and saying, "How dare you change
What
the
are
formula?"
you doing?
So that's the thing about
Those are the tropes that we talk about
Right.
in, it,
Well, so sometimes that's the concept of the anti-hero.
you have your comfort zone because when you watch a Hallmark movie, there's a comfort zone of how the creator made it for you, where they write the characters that fit into the comfort zone.
Right. And then there's also the concept of the anti-hero. The anti-hero is somebody who's a bad person. They always say about good people can do bad things, but also bad people can do good things. So like Tony
Two
Soprano.
things could be right at the same time.
Right. Tony Soprano is a perfect example of that. He's the hero, but he's also a murderer, and he's a gangster, and he's all of those things.
Like you find yourself cheering for the mafia guy.
You're right. He's the hero of the show. And you're like saying, "Oh, look, he killed his nephew and he squeezed his giant nose until he died." I mean, and everybody's saying, "I've been watching this for 6 seasons. I wanted to squeeze his nose until he died because I hate that guy." So that's why he got away with that. But when you're writing a story, you have to look at it, and it's good to be self-aware and know how you're falling into a trope and maybe mix it up a little.
Okay. So back to books. No, I mean, not books. Back to how books. That's what I meant to say. I'm very confused all of a sudden.
Go back to the books.
No, where do the characters really come from?
Right. When you look at someone do they recognize themselves? For example,
Okay.
the character might be, you might have written a fairy or you might have written a monster, but it's based on a real person.
Oh my
And
God.
Elise's mother was reading the book, and then what happened?
All of a sudden there was a scream from the living room, and she's like, "You wrote what I said. You wrote what I said."
Right.
So the line was, when it was the Silvani was talking to Speranza after she met the queen, and she's like, "Did you wore that all day
To see the queen?
to see the queen?" It was kind of like one day I came home and she's like, "You wore that all day?" I mean, I must have saw 20,000 people that day by
Right.
the time I got to the city and home. And I'm like, "Yeah." She goes, "Don't ever wear that again.
Right.
It does nothing for you."
So that's where we use the character to portray a monster
So it was perfect.
in real life. A real life monster became a monster in the show.
Nice.
book.
She's going to appreciate that one.
But what happens is you take a person and you take maybe some of the characters. Now, one of the characters, for example, we took a person's actual occupation, but we used a different person in Lisa's life to be the character's personality. And
Right. We mix it up. It's
and-
like a smash up.
So that's Ginny, the girl who owns the coffee shop.
So there's a little bit of different. She's a mashup of more characters. I try to put different
Of
things
more
in.
people that
There's
you
more
actually
people
know.
that I actually know. So something I might like the way this person talks, or the way this person dresses, or how this one tells a story. So it's not like a single personality trait. It's just, it's really a whole bunch of people. The characters become more composites.
Right,
of
but the interaction that Ginny has with Speranza is like the interaction you have with
friendship.
some of your friends, your
Yes.
close friends.
where you know what they're going to say.
Right,
And
they
they have their inside jokes, and you know them your whole entire life. So when you're having a conversation, or even if you're nervous about something, or you're expecting something, whatever it is that's happening in that particular scene or chapter, it's that friendship, that almost that family, that bond, that they know everything about you because you went through life together. You went through the good stuff, the bad stuff, and they just know you, and they know how you're going to react to different things, and they get all your jokes.
Right.
Like,
So-
that's what I wanted that friendship to be.
right, and specific characters could be sort of specific people. For instance, Bertie Rubino.
Right. Well, Birdie, that was easy because I did take a few things of other people, but the main thing was this woman that used to come. I think we talked about her before. In another
Yes, we did.
podcast,
Yes,
where she comes and she used to shade her eyes to see because we had like tinted windows, so she had to shade her eyes to see who was in the store because she was looking for Jim, because she had another question about a piece of mail she got
Right.
that had nothing to do with taxes.
Yes. So she didn't want to speak to Lisa. So she would wait until she saw me walking around, and then she would come in to speak to me. But Birdie is a little bit of self-awareness, because that's what I like to think is a good thing to do, and Lisa liked to do in a show, in the book, was let the person have a little self-awareness. So she has minimal self-awareness,
Right.
but a little. And she knows that she's a scutch and she's a pain in
And
the
she's
neck,
just going to push,
because that's who she is.
because that's who she is.
But at one point she says, I want to call and find out what happened to my friend, but I can't call her children because they won't answer the phone.
Correct.
Because nobody answers the phone when I call.
Then she had self-awareness.
Right. She doesn't take it to the next step, though.
To say why they wouldn't answer the phone.
And how can I change myself so that maybe someday they'd want to pick up the
Correct.
phone? She doesn't go that far.
She doesn't care about that.
But at least she's got a
But
modicum.
she just asked Speranza to make the phone call, so
Right.
she could bypass that.
She found a workaround, as most of us do. You know. So what happens is, when you're creating a character, you take a composite, like Lisa says, write what you know, and people that you know, and we look for people to be positive characters. So if we know you,
look at this. Here's a character. We could talk about her because we have Lorraine.
right,
Right? Lorraine's the name in the book,
correct,
not her real name.
right.
So Lorraine is dead, so we can talk about her.
Yeah, she unfortunately passed away. So in other words,
That's not while I was laughing,
oh, I was. I'm sorry.
because we were going to do something else.
Okay, well, what we're talking.
I gotta send him notes.
Yes.
Lorraine, let's do it again.
Okay.
Lorraine
Freddie's dead.
is dead.
That's what I
No.
said.
Uncle Freddie's dead.
Yes. And that was a long way.
It was all a long way to get to.
A joke that didn't really work. Sorry.
It didn't work, but if you did listen, if you do know the,
If you know
Jerky
the song,
Boys,
the great Curtis
if
Mayfield.
you know the Jerky Boys,
Yes.
and if you know the song he was talking
Curtis
about,
Mayfield, one of my favorite artists, and you should get on your Pandora and do a Curtis Mayfield set. His two big songs were Superfly and Freddie's Dead, but he had a lot of great other ones.
but that was in real life she's dead, and in the book she's dead, which just happens to be a coincidence because I didn't know she was dead when I was writing it. But it was based on someone who really annoyed me.
Yes, Lisa had a run-in with that person, and
So
and she
we
didn't
don't
like
have to
them
go
very
any
much.
further.
But so if you annoy Lisa, you're going to end up in the book as a
You
monster.
will. I will put you in the book, and you might die in the book.
Yes.
That's my way of writing out my frustrations.
So don't ask how old you were when you look at the picture on the back of the book. That's not a good thing.
Ay, ay, ay. Next.
Look, well, we're talking about characters, and we're talking about
Now, let's talk about some real life situations that inspired scenes in the book.
okay, well, example, going to what we call Sal's of Brooklyn, Sal's of Carroll Gardens was like Vinny's of Carroll Gardens. So
Right.
Lisa described this.
I mean, we talked about in the locations part.
And going in and eating there, or going to Valentino Pier where the two grandmothers meet and talk.
Right.
That's what we've done before, and all different things that we did in the book.
Like the whole neighborhood went to Valentino Park when we were having the solar eclipse.
Right.
And you had to wear the glasses.
Well, another example is
Everybody that was on the pier was from the neighborhood.
right, exactly. Another example that
Because
Lisa.
we know where it is.
Another example is when Lisa talked about, as we had spoken about in prior podcasts, when she would go to the antique store and buy stuff.
Correct.
She put that in the book as well.
Yeah, but what I wanted to talk about was we talked about Swenson's.
Okay, so Swenson was a place, one of the locations that we talked about. It was a
Where
famous,
the council met.
right, it's a famous ice cream parlor in Bay Ridge.
But I really, when I was writing it, I had in my head this German delicatessen on McDonald Avenue, so that when we were kids coming home from St. Athanasius in our uniforms, on the way walking home, we would take 60th Street to Avenue N, and right there was this German delicatessen where we used to go for lunch.
Right, so you used that
So
as the
that
basis.
was kind of like the feeling was in my head
Right.
when I was writing that, the emotional Like I could see those characters working there and how it looked. So, but then, mashed it with Swenson.
Right. And that's, as we spoke about in location, that happened with the locations, but we also did it with people. Lisa also did it with people. So she would mesh together different people's qualities.
Like, I like the way that person talks, or I like the way the person walks, or I like this, or I like this person, or the way they're forward, or like you got to mix things. Even with the fairies, we had to build the fairies from scratch.
Right. And we gave them personalities and we researched the fairies and they said they were a certain way, but then we changed it. So, for example, Mello, they described what Monticello was like. And then Lisa decided to give him the characterization of Edward G. Robinson, or Froggy, as she said, from Courageous Cat.
Yes, Froggy.
So that's a lot of fun of writing.
But you'll get to see more of him and more of the fairies again in
the
book
next
2,
book.
carried on through all of the 7 books. And you're going to get to fall in love with them.
Yes.
Hopefully you fell in love with them already and you want to know more.
Yes. But what we like to do is we like to threaten people that they're going to be in the next book.
I'm going to put you in the book.
Yes. But
you're not going to like it.
we also get inspiration from our friends, and some of them contacted us after they read the book. So we were talking about doing a potential storyline. And Lisa was reminded by her friend that her father had done a murder case. We said, ooh, for a future book, this would be a good hook.
This is good.
Because we wanted to talk about what it was like doing jury duty in downtown Brooklyn.
Oh, yes. That's definitely going to be in a book. And it's going to be very Brooklyn, and it involves pink eye.
Right. And going to the Queen restaurant, which I just found out doesn't exist anymore, and I'm very upset. But we used to go there, and there was a guy that was a maitre d' that Lisa knew from OTB, and he was the maitre d'.
He used to come every day and play an exacta and a triple and money to win on a horse every day.
So we went in there with a mafia guy one time, and the guy was kissing the mafia guy's ass, but then he was also being very nice to Lisa because she used to take his bets.
It was a very great story. I feel like that story could definitely be weaved into the book.
Totally. And then we said, and then we're talking about it. Our friend is a court officer. Maybe he'll make an appearance.
Maybe. So if you're listening there, Campbell's Soup Man.
Yes. And also we're going to talk about the bar where they used to go to, where I used to hang out, Cody's on Court Street.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the characters that went in there was our friend who was a funeral director. And Lisa and I were sitting one day eating dinner late at night. And he walked in and he said, Dola, what are you doing here?
It's tax season, I think.
Yes, after tax season. What are you doing here? I said, we're just having dinner. We're a little late. Oh, okay, whatever. I'm going to send you a drink. I said, thank you.
He was always popping. You're going to see more. Well, I'm not going to give that one up. But that's how you take a character and you change it into something for the book.
Right.
Where Vinny always popping up somewhere. He was always popping up somewhere. Even on our rehearsal dinner that we had in Casa Rosa.
Yeah, he came in and paid for all the wine.
We didn't even know.
Right. But I knew him all my life, and he was very good friends. His father was very good friends with my uncle because they worked on the docks together. And every once in a while I told a story, and Lisa always freaks out. I would be walking down Court Street coming home from college because I went to Pace. So sometimes I didn't want to be bothered changing 7 trains to get to the F train. So I just take it downtown and just walk the 20 blocks. In those days, I didn't care. And I'd be walking down Court Street. He'd say, hey, Dolan, come here. You got to help me. And what? We got to bring the stiff downstairs. And he'd have the guy in the black bag, And then we'd get some of the drunken guys from OTB to carry the stiffs down the steps,
Well, they used to carry the actual coffin.
Yeah, they also did it in the church as well.
They put on their best suit.
Exactly. They had one best suit. So he was a funny character.
That's an example of taking someone that and changing it into a character for a book.
And the situation as well, the whole story. Mm-hmm. So that's like one of the many characters.
And when it's from real life, you could bring the emotions, you could bring the smell, not meaning because it's the dead body, but using all your senses because you lived it. So you could bring all of that into your writing.
Right. And but it's a little bit of a shorthand. And why it works is because you don't, the person that's reading it doesn't know that person, but you know that person intimately and all about them. So it's easy for you to take those characteristics and use them. Mm-hmm. Now, what a lot of people do in books also and in TV shows, they have a certain character, a certain style or a certain person, and that character shows up in almost every show. So a good example is one of our favorite producers, Bill Lawrence. He always has characters, and we notice he based a lot of them on his wife, Krista Miller. So we were watching a show recently, Rooster, that we really enjoyed, and it's set in a college, and he based it on, I think, Sarah Lawrence, which is a college in New England that his family was involved in. And he used that as a background. See, writing what you know.
Right.
And he set up Rooster's wife. And we're watching the show, and Lisa said...
So it was Rooster's ex-wife.
Ex-wife, yes.
And I'm like, he wrote this part for Krista Miller.
Yes, there was no doubt.
100%. This part was written for her, but she probably couldn't do it.
And instead they had Connie Britton that gave it a different vibe totally.
And because she comes off as more imperious.
Right.
Instead of that impish way that Krista Miller, she could say the meanest thing and get away with it. She
Right.
could pull it off.
Certain people can do that. I mean, you can't
And
not.
I could see her. I wish Krista Miller was playing that part because it would be more believable.
Right. But when you look at an actor, doesn't this happen to you? You realize all the other parts that they had, and it affects how you look at them. Just exactly what Harrison Ford, he has all that gravitas from Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
So when he plays the psychologist in Shrinking, all of that authority is invested in his character.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And you actually listen to his ways of therapy. like, okay, I'll try that.
Right. Very few.
Like you just believe him.
And very few actors can get out of that, even though they pretend that
he gets the job done.
That they want to stretch their abilities, but almost none of them do. The only guy I think that ever did it really was Daniel Day-Lewis, I think, really. But most of the other ones, like when you look at an actor, Jack Nicholson is the same in every movie practically. Tom Cruise is exactly the same.
Right.
What would be really interesting if Tom Cruise played a coward, and he said, "Oh, I'm 5 feet tall. I'm getting my ass kicked in every fight." That would be interesting. I don't think he would ever do it in a million years.
We'd see him in a Taylor Sheridan show.
Yes. They brand him and then throw him over the side and kill him, but people don't do that, very seldom. So when you're writing a story, you're using people that you know and giving them characteristics that you know.
And you can tell what the characters are in the show. You can't take a character from Shrinking or like a Bill Lawrence show and put him in
a Kurt Sutter motorcycle
Taylor
game.
Sheridan show.
Taylor Sheridan, yes.
You'll see it. It will be out of place.
Yes, Taylor Sheridan never has a funny, interesting character. He tried, like in Landman, he had the wife is supposed to be a comic character. It doesn't come off too well.
Right.
She comes off kind of nasty and
and abusive.
Yeah, and it's like she's really not a person you really want to know, And it's like she's beautiful and all of that, yeah, but it's just.
But she's a narcissist.
It just doesn't work, But he's trying to make her like quirky, and his quirky is
like
not.
When you watch Shrinking, you fall in love with every character.
Right, but
you love them all for what they do, and you really commit to each one.
Right, and he's very good at what he does. But I have to be fair; he would not be able to do a.
He couldn't do a Taylor Sheridan show.
Right, he wouldn't have the.
Just like I don't want things in my head. I don't want things in my imagination. I cover my eyes because I don't want that in my head. I feel like Bill Lawrence stays in his lane.
Right.
And he does it very well. And I think he would have to really reach to be a Taylor Sheridan, and that would be outside his comfort zone, and I don't think it would work at all.
No, it wouldn't. He wouldn't. It's not something he could really do. I don't think. I mean, he could surprise me, but it's very unlikely, that people write what they write, and they are who they are, and you know that, and oftentimes you sign on to it because you want to see that. So when you want to see an Aaron Sorkin show, it's very cerebral, and they're all talking away, blah, 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 blah. And if you like that, it's great. If sometimes it's like, what did he, as our niece said, a lot of talking.
Yeah.
There's a lot of talking.
Who did Bad Monkey?
Bad Monkey was Bill Lawrence,
Wasn't that
yes.
Bill Lawrence too? Yeah. He just has great characters.
Right.
And he gives them flaws.
Right, but he made him a little bit more self-aware. So we actually knew that he was a cop that bent the rules and did all that. He's not aware of that.
He's not straight and narrow. He He's a good character, though.
Right, and it's well
He
written.
gets the job done.
But it would be really, you couldn't put an Elmore Leonard character or a Michael Connolly character in that mix because it's not, it just doesn't fit, and it would stand out, and you'd say this doesn't fit
Like
with
a
the
sore
general.
thumb.
Yeah, it doesn't fit, and that happens in the English shows too that we watched. In English shows, they're all pretty much the same. They don't really have somebody that's that unusual, right? If they did, it would be, I think, interesting. But also maybe you would watch it once or twice and then not want to watch it again because then it also becomes a trope. It also becomes the same thing. When you put a brutal, let's say, to give you a good example, what if you took Popeye Doyle from The French Connection and put him in an Agatha Christie novel, right? So Agatha Christie is writing this story about the English countryside, and everybody gathers together for an event, and somebody gets murdered, right? And Popeye Doyle is there. So is he gonna stand there like Hercule Poirot? I don't even know how to say that guy's name, but know all he would know all of the different nuances and be able to cerebrally tell you what happened, or would he just grab the guy around the throat and stick his head in the toilet until he confessed? That's the kind of book I write, and that's not
Right.
Lisa's book. So that's why I say,
Sometimes when we're editing Jim's book, some of his books, when we go over them or he's telling me about them, I'm like,
ooh.
yeah.
And that's funny because a lot of the people in the library know that I'm also a writer, and they want me to. When am I going to publish my book, which we put aside for a while until we could finish?
Isn't he sweet?
Do the second Brooklyn Witch book,
And then
which
we
we're in the
have to
midst
get
of.
your book up.
Right, but my book is not for these people, and I don't think they're
But
going to
there are
enjoy
a lot
it.
of people that like it, and a lot of my
Oh, yeah.
friends are waiting for it.
Right, I think they would enjoy it. I think it is what it is. So I think it's a certain style, and people like it or not. It's okay. But when you're watching a TV show or you're reading a book, you're coming in with a mindset. So if I pick up a book by Ernest Hemingway, or I pick up a book by Daniel Patterson or Michael Connolly or Robert Parker or Elmore Leonard or
Turtle Dove.
Nancy McFadden, like all
Who's
of
Turtle Dove? Why did I say that?
Turtle Dove. No,
It's not Turtle. What's his name?
Lonesome Dove. Oh, Harry Turtle Dove. Yes, now that
Yes.
is an actual person. Yes, that is true.
Isn't that the time?
Time traveling,
time
going
traveling.
back in time, and all that kind of jazz. He's the guy that loves craziness. Like one of his main books is about these.
So you know what you're going to get when you pick up his book.
Right, and he's science fiction, but also alternative history. So in one of his books, he combined the two in a mashup. Okay, and he has these insect aliens that are like insects, but
Wait, was he the one that did the cruise ship?
yes,
Okay.
and he has the insects that are like this shape of humanoids, like the size of a person, and they invade the world during World War
I'm
II.
already turned off. Like I don't want.
They invite right, so they invade World War II and they conquer a lot sections of the world, but it mixes up the people in World War II, so they become allies. So the Germans and the Americans and the English become allies to fight against the insects, and that's what he did to mix it up.
That's usually how everybody comes together on the planet when they're fighting the aliens.
Yeah, and outside the enemy.
Yes.
Right.
An
So
outside
what?
enemy.
So what alternative? I like.
But just talk about the cruise ship one because
Right.
that's the one I like.
All right. So I love alternative history, and he writes a lot. S.M. Sterling is another guy that writes it, and he turns around and he says, "What would happen if, people went back in time with all of their knowledge, and how would they affect how
Because
history would
the
change?"
future is harder to write than going back to the past.
Right. Because when we talk about the future, we think that
This is how we're doing the Never Never. Everything has to be written from scratch. You have to build a world.
Right.
So if you go into the future, you have to build that world.
right, and you have to build in the things that are essential to that world and that are a given. For example, we watched Star Trek, right? And they all had communicators, and everybody said, "Oh, that would be cool if you had a little thing in your hand that you could communicate. You didn't have to pull the cord all the way to the kitchen from the living room when you're talking to somebody." And then we got cell phones, so that's
right.
basically what Star Trek is.
But he goes back in time because the past is already written.
Right. So in this particular series of books, he said, what if an entire cruise ship went back in time? And
And everything on it.
And it was the time right after the death of Alexander the Great, when all his generals broke up his big, huge empire, one of the most famous periods in history. And he said, what would happen if they allied with certain of the generals? Because what happened when Alexander the Great passed away, the theory was he was dying, and one of the generals came up to him and said, who do you leave? And his child was very young. He said, who do you leave your kingship to? Who's going to be the next king? Who's going to be in charge? And who are you leaving it to? And that guy stood up and he said, to the strongest. Which I don't think that's what Alexander the Great said, but that's what he said. And then they started killing each other. So, and then what was funny was that the cruise ship only had maybe a couple of rifles. There's not a lot of guns on a cruise ship. Mm-hmm. There's not a lot of stuff. And all the discussion of how the cruise ship had to survive and what they had to do to survive. But they cheated a little in that book too. But regardless, that's what his particular specialty was, alternative history. Other books that you read or other TV shows, they have a specialty. So if you watch a Law and Order show, it's always a formula. Mm-hmm. There's the crime, there's the trial. The cops find them, and halfway in the show, and then the second part is the trial. So, or you're watching, a
workplace,
workplace drama, like we're talking about. Like Lisa was saying,
or workplace comedy,
right? Like a workplace comedy, and somebody like. What was the one that you said, Lisa, that was one that everybody thinks of?
Like Cheers.
Right.
When you think about the TV show Cheers, you got to know every one of those characters. And not only did you love them on the television show, they reminded you of someone you knew.
In real life.
If you ever hung out in a bar or even any type of workplace, there's always these different personalities that
right,
show
different
up.
types, right, and
different types of characters,
right, and you know who those guys are, and that's what happens in books a lot. It's a lot of shorthand. So we introduce somebody, right away. The crooked cop, in that particular type of book, or the naive young girl who comes to the city from the farm, and she's getting a job in the Devil Wears Prada, and she's like. Going to be the assistant, but she doesn't really know about all of the jaded stuff that the people have to teach. So all of that stuff is normal and part of writing. And what Lisa tried to do is give it a little bit of a twist sometimes.
Well, the goal is you're not trying to copy real life. We're trying to capture that feeling and write about that.
Right.
So, at the end of the day, every writer pulls from somewhere, some from memory, observation, of course, and from people who left an impression on them.
And sometimes from people who probably wish they didn't give you that impression. You say, ooh, is that me? I didn't come off too good there.
Was that really me? But the magic happens. And when those pieces become something new, that's kind of what we did in The Brooklyn Witch. That's what The Brooklyn Witch is. So it's not real life. It's remembered life.
And with that, we're going to close it out. I hope you guys enjoyed the show and had fun. And remember, we'll see you next time. Same stoop.
Different magic.
Bye-bye.